Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. What do experienced coaches know that maybe they wish they had known when they first started, or they would love to pass along to newer or emerging coaches? That's what we're going to get into today. If you're newer to coaching, you've probably had moments of wondering, am I doing this right? What if I don't know the answer? What if I mess it up? And I want to say, first of all, every coach has been there. So this episode is a heart-to-heart about what shifts as you grow into your coaching presence. It's not necessarily about learning more tools. It's about evolving your coaching and evolving how you show up. So I'm going to dive into some of these. And I was crowdsourcing a couple of friends to try to get their thoughts on things and pulling in some of my own thoughts, as well as some things that we really try to emphasize in the Certified Life Coach Collective program at teamclcc.com, because if we can give any of our participants a leg up and some more understanding of what's before them from the get-go, we want to do that because it's really going to help. So let's start here. Number one, things that experienced coaches know that often newer coaches don't know. And it's this, that you don't need to know, you need to listen. Let's start there. One of the most common things that we see with new coaches is a fear of not knowing. You're in that client session and you feel like you're supposed to do something, right? I'm supposed to fix it. I'm supposed to ask the magic question. I'm supposed to offer the metaphor or the insight that unlocks everything. But experienced coaches know that it's not about knowing. In fact, I would say the longer I coach, the more I understand that every single time I enter into a session, I truly do not know. I do not know what is best for the client. I do not know what the client, quote unquote, should do next. So that ability to truly listen, not just waiting for your turn to speak, definitely not steering the client towards the result you think they need, but that ability to just be in the space with them and to be curious and to let the client's process unfold is the space where the magic happens. And I will tell you something else that I've really learned about that desire that I think comes from a really good place of wanting to help, to fix, to jump in, to ask the right questions, to open everything up for our clients. It comes from a good place. But I would say that in my experience as a coach, the client will feel like it's a false win if somebody else gives it to them. I think there is something about human psychology, the nature of being human, where even though we don't want to struggle, we also want to be the ones who are the heroes of our own adventure. We want to be the ones who help ourselves out of the struggle. And if I could compare this to overparenting or helicopter parenting, when those parents are overparenting or helicopter parenting and constantly jumping in and trying to fix and bubble wrap life for their children, what happens is their children leave home and go to college or go out into the working world, and they can't handle life. And that's really real. This is something that we are seeing happening. More and more research is coming out about these things. This is a really real consequence of trying to over-orchestrate when it happens with parents and their children. And I think that it can happen too when a coach is coming in there thinking that they have to have all the answers. So when you're new, silence can feel awkward. It can feel almost like a failure. But when you're experienced, Silence becomes sacred because you know that it's where the client is doing their real work and where insights will bubble up. All right, next thing that I think experienced coaches know, and I would want new or beginning coaches to know. Confidence is built through exposure, not perfection. Newer coaches often feel a pressure to get it right before they can be ready. And that can show up in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's, I have to have like a handout in front of me of the right questions to ask. Sometimes it's, I have to study it more. So kind of like taking a step back and going, I want an academic kind of approach to coaching where I'm studying up on it. More practice sessions. And I'm always a fan of more practice sessions, but I want to speak specifically to maybe a coach who feels like they can't take on paying clients yet, that they have to have more practice sessions before they can take a paying client. And then it's also very common in the industry for there to be coaches who feel a lack of confidence and they go, I just need more certifications. And sometimes that's valid. We've had quite a few people come to CLCC who had coach training elsewhere and they just felt like, I got a bunch of PowerPoints. I didn't really feel prepared. I didn't really feel, launched into the world as a coach. But in today's discussion, I'm really talking about when someone is absolutely qualified to be a coach, but they think they need another certification and then they'll feel ready. But then, of course, they get one and then it's, I need another one and then I'll feel ready. I'll feel ready after this next one. So here's the truth. Confidence, it doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from exposure. It comes from putting yourself in the room. It comes from coaching real humans over and over again. It comes from having moments that don't go well and realizing you're still standing. And in fact, we have an exercise that we do in CLCC where we give coaches this practice of, we have like these prompts that are written out. I don't want to give too much of the exercise away because otherwise, if you're considering joining our program, you'll already know what's going to happen. And I don't want that to be the case. But we have these prompts that we have written out, and there's a practice where you get into a session with a peer in the program, and that at a specific moment in the session, you pull a prompt, and whatever is on that prompt, you have to take the session in a different direction. Both people know that this is going to happen prior to the start of this exercise. So it is absolutely with client care in mind. I would not suggest doing this with a random client who doesn't know and consent to this type of experimental coaching. But essentially what we're trying to create in that exercise is the coach's ability to recover from the session suddenly pivoting in a different direction than expected. So we're trying to train you from the get-go to be in the exposure, not trying to get it perfect. Experienced coaches have simply had more reps. That's it. They've built a relationship with their own discomfort. I never feel like and I've been coaching since 2006, so we're going on I don't even know how many years at this point, but I would never say that I walk into a coaching session feeling as if I have all the answers for the client or I know exactly how the session's going to go or anything like that. What I will say that I walk into the client session with is a feeling of confidence that through co-creating the session together, if the session gets off track, if it loses its juice, if the client is frustrated, we're going to find our way through. So you really want to learn how to build a relationship with your own discomfort. Stay in the conversation instead of shutting down and panicking when it doesn't go how you hope. If you want to grow, you cannot wait until you feel ready. You got to coach. That's how you start to feel ready. Next thing, I would say that emotional resilience is simply part of the job. And this is why CLCC is so big on your own personal growth alongside learning the coaching skill set. Coaching takes emotional resilience, and people don't talk about this enough. Your client will reschedule or disappear and ghost you. It happens. Or someone doesn't renew, or a client really resists change session after session after session, or a session feels flat. And every coach has had this happen where a session goes flat and there's this awkwardness that kind of comes into the session as a result. And when you're new, all of that can feel so personal. You might start wondering, did I fail? Did I do something wrong? Am I a bad coach? But experienced coaches know that that is just the terrain. Coaching is relational. People are going to bring their fear, their ambivalence, their defenses, their judgments, their hesitations, all of their patterns with them. That's not about you. All those patterns are going to play out in some way in a coaching session. It's not about you. Your job is to stay grounded and curious. These are essential coaching skills. Staying grounded, staying curious. Your job is essentially to hold the space, not to control the outcome. And that is really hard to do if you don't have a wide capacity of emotional resilience. So emotional resilience is part of the craft of coaching. You develop it by staying connected to your value, even when things are wobbly, even when the client is not glowing at the end of the session and going, oh my God, that changed my life. Everything's so great. A lot of that does happen, but it's not going to happen every time. And the more emotionally resilient you are, the more prepared you'll be. Next thing, the tools matter, but who you are matters more. And I can do a little comparison to therapy with this one. They've actually done research to try to figure out which of the therapeutic techniques is the most effective. And what they found is that, yes, some therapeutic techniques do tend to be a little more effective than others. For instance, they've compared cognitive behavioral therapy, which is kind of the champion in most of the research, to psychoanalysis. And outcomes for cognitive behavioral therapy do tend to be a little better. But there's this outlier that emerged when they were studying this that found that actually, regardless of the technique a therapist uses, the most important factor for a successful therapeutic outcome was the trust and rapport and relationship between the therapist and their client. And so I believe that there's a parallel there with coaching. I observe that a lot of new coaches over-focus on their tools. And of course, coaching tools is absolutely part of being a solid coach. You do want to have solid techniques and frameworks. But your clients are not going to come back to you because you used the right tool. They're going to come back because of how they feel in your presence. Do they feel seen? Do they feel held? Do they feel empowered? Can they bring all of who they are? Who you are in the room matters. Your presence is part of the intervention and the invitation to behavior change. And the good news is you don't have to become someone else to be effective. I recently stated in a Craft of Coaching episode, a podcast episode titled, I think it's called Choosing Your Coaching Niche or How to Know Your Coaching Niche. And I talk about the difference between niche and style. Niche is a doorway to working with clients like health and wellness coach, executive coach, etc. Style is what you naturally bring to the coaching session. Like, are you more slow and methodical and kind of you pause a lot, or you use a lot of metaphors, or are you more quick and punchy, direct, to the point, let's go, it's kind of the energy you bring to the session. And you don't have to become someone else to be an effective coach because everybody needs different things. And sometimes coaches with one style can be saying the exact same thing as coaches with another style, and it's not going to reach the client in the same way, or the client has a different preference. So the tools matter, but who you are matters more, and you don't have to become someone else to be an effective coach. But do keep peeling back the layers and showing up more and more as your real self. Next one, and I love this one so much. New coaches. And for people pleasers, this one might be you doing your personal growth work at the same time that you are supporting your clients. Coaching is not about being liked. It's about being useful. Now, earlier I talked about the trust and rapport being such an important part of coaching outcomes. Trust and rapport come alongside being liked, being useful. And here's what I mean by that. If you think about the people you trust the most, they are people that you feel safe to disagree with. They are people who are not going to shun you or put you down just because you're having an uncomfortable conversation. So, of course, I am not saying that, if your clients don't like you, it doesn't matter, right? I just said, how do clients feel in your presence a moment ago? Do they feel seen and held and empowered? But if you are just being a yes person for your clients and just telling them what they want to hear, they're going to sense that and it's going to feel inauthentic. New coaches often have this desire for their clients to really, really like them, and that's really about control. It's a feeling of, if my clients like me, then it won't be uncomfortable, sessions will go smoothly. But experienced coaches know that your job is not to be liked, your job is to be useful. And sometimes being useful means holding the mirror up, naming the pattern, asking the question that might have your client squirm just a little, because that's where the growth is. And your job is not necessarily to wrap up the session with a neat little bow at the end every single time. Sometimes your clients will not walk away feeling happy after every session. But when they trust you, when there's rapport between the two of you, then that also opens up the door for you as a coach to say transparently, hey, you're in a growth space here. You're on the right track. I get it, and it doesn't feel comfortable right now. I empathize. This is really hard. But you are in the thick of a process, and we can't shortchange the process. And in fact, I care about you too much as a client to just tell you the things that would feel comfortable to hear, instead of trying to name the patterns that might be keeping you feeling stuck in your life. What matters is not, is your client feeling like their life is all perfect at the end of every session? Spoiler alert, they won't. What matters is that they walk away with clarity, with something to sit with an opening, with an understanding that they are in a process, and an understanding that you as their coach empathize with them and support them in the midst of that process. So, if you are in that early stretch of your coaching career, wondering if you are enough, if you're good enough as a coach, I just want to say you are. And speaking of being in a process, if I may step into the coaching shoes here for just a moment and share with you, hey, you might not love that I'm saying some of these things, but I'm offering them in service to you. If you feel wobbly, that's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're growing, and growth takes time. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to already try to be where someone with 5 or 10 or 20 years of coaching experience is. But you do need to stay in the room. Be with your discomfort, with your curiosity, and fully be with your clients. Keep showing up. That's what experienced coaches know. That's how they become coaches who have longevity, because they were willing to sit with this part that's uncomfortable to get to the part that's really amazing. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.